She kissed her son goodbye, slipped a handwritten note into his lunchbox, and watched him walk into school for the very first time. 5 minutes later, she was bleeding on the sidewalk, for bullets tearing through her body. Parents screamed, children froze, and the shooter? She stood calmly with a phone to her ear, as if nothing had happened. This wasn't a random act of violence. This was months of ignored warnings, shattered windows, slashed tires, restraining orders that meant nothing, and a custody system that forced a woman to face the very man she feared most. So how did a simple school drop-off turn into what witnesses called an execution in broad daylight? And how did every system meant to protect her fail so completely? This is the story of Romeca Meeks, and the case that has shaken Chicago to its core. Welcome to the True Crime Shadow. To my loyal subscribers, thank you for standing with me. It means more than you know, and I hope you and your families continue to stay safe. And if you're new here, welcome. This is where we uncover the stories the headlines skim over, the truths that hide in plain sight. If you haven't already, please subscribe, hit the like button, and share this case. Let's walk together into the shadows of this story. It was Monday morning, September 9th, 2025. The streets of Chicago's South Loop were just waking up, parents walking kids to school, buses pulling up, teachers greeting students at the door. At 9:05 a.m., the sound of gunfire ripped through the routine. Blood spread across the pavement outside an elementary school. Parents screamed, clutching their children in panic. Sirens began wailing in the distance. Just minutes earlier, Romeca Meeks had been standing at that very spot, smiling as she kissed her son goodbye. She slipped him a note that read, "Happy Monday, son. You're the smartest, funniest kid I know. Love, Mommy." Now, she lay on the concrete, 4 bullets in her body, 1 in her face. And just 10 feet away, the woman who pulled the trigger stood completely calm. Green leggings, black sweater, phone pressed to her ear, talking casually as though nothing had happened. No attempt to run, no panic. A witness shouted, "You just shot somebody, what's wrong with you?" Her response? "I have a license to carry." Frozen between them was Carlos Way, the father of their children, the man who had dragged both women into this deadly triangle. Witnesses say he had Romeca in a headlock when the bullets flew. This wasn't random street violence. This was a story months in the making: shattered glass, slashed tires, workplace confrontations, and restraining orders that couldn't save her. But the question is, how did it all come to this moment, outside a schoolyard, in front of hundreds of children? Before she became a headline, Romeca Meeks was simply a woman determined to build a better life. She had walked across the stage at Central State University in Wilberforce, Ohio, graduating with a degree in criminal justice. She chose that field for a reason. She wanted to protect the vulnerable, to help people navigate the system. She studied the very laws meant to shield women from the kind of violence she would one day face. But life didn't unfold the way the textbooks promised. Single motherhood came early. Bills piled up. That criminal justice degree gathered dust while Romeca pulled on a McDonald's uniform each morning. It wasn't glamorous, but it was steady work, and it kept her son clothed, fed, and in school. Coworkers remembered her as someone who carried herself with strength, even on her hardest days. She worked long hours, yet she still found time to write notes for her son, remind him of his worth, and dream of the future she hoped to give him. The cruel irony? Romeca understood the red flags of domestic abuse. She had studied the warning signs, the cycles, the escalation. She knew what stalking looked like. She knew what the statistics said. And still, knowledge alone couldn't protect her. Because while Romeca wanted distance and safety, the man she had once loved refused to let go. At the center of this tragedy stood Carlos Way. On social media, he was known as Rackboy Lawson, a man who projected the image of loyalty, respect, and family. His posts were filled with motivational quotes, snapshots with his children, captions about fatherhood and responsibility. To outsiders, he looked like a man devoted to his kids. But the reality was very different. Carlos had multiple children with different women, carefully cropping or separating them in photos to control the image he presented online. Behind the curated posts was a man who thrived on manipulation and control. For a while, Rika had been part of that picture. Their relationship started like so many others, sweet, hopeful, full of promises. They even welcomed a child together. But over time, the love soured. Arguments turned into intimidation, and affection turned into control. Soon, Rika found herself trapped in the shadow of a man who wouldn't respect her boundaries. By the time she finally broke away, Carlos's behavior had shifted from troubling to dangerous. Shattered windows, slashed tires, unexpected appearances at her workplace, confrontations in public. It was clear he wasn't letting go, not of her, not of control, and certainly not of the power he thought he had over her life. And just as Rika was trying to escape that toxic orbit, Carlos found someone new, someone who would take the chaos to an entirely different level. In early 2024, another name entered this story, Holly Johnson. At first, she seemed like just another chapter in Carlos's tangled love life. But Holly was different. Where Rika wanted distance, Holly wanted closeness. Where Rika filed restraining orders, Holly filed paperwork of a different kind. By summer of 2024, Holly was pregnant. By fall, she was posting photos of Carlos online, calling him her king. And by winter, she had given birth to yet another child in Carlos's growing orbit. But Holly didn't just play the role of a supportive partner. She became an active player in the conflict between Carlos and Rika. In March 2025, Cook County records show Holly applied for a concealed carry permit. She went through the training, the background checks, the fingerprints. By June, she had her license. 3 months later, she would use it. Witnesses later recalled seeing Holly with Carlos outside Rika's workplace, sometimes in the car, sometimes inside, ordering nothing, just staring. It wasn't subtle, it was intimidation. To Rika, every shift at McDonald's became a stage where Carlos and Holly showed up, uninvited, a reminder that she was never free of them. Holly wasn't just standing by Carlos's side, she was reinforcing his control. And as the summer of 2025 wore on, the confrontations escalated, until Rika finally decided she had no choice but to turn to the courts for protection. By July 2025, Rika had reached her breaking point. The final straw came when she walked into her apartment to find her television face down on the floor, the screen shattered into a spiderweb of cracks. It wasn't just destruction, it was a message. A warning that her safety, her space, even her home, was never truly hers. This time, she went to court, and the judge acted quickly. An order of protection was granted. On paper, it was clear. Carlos Way was required to stay 500 feet away from Rika at all times. But here's where the system exposed its cracks. The order couldn't erase custody rights. Carlos was still legally entitled to see his son. That meant Rika was forced to text him, coordinate pickups, and interact with the very man she was trying to escape. Broken windows and slashed tires weren't enough to sever his access. The courts demanded proof of direct harm to the child before they would step in. So even with a restraining order in place, Carlos still had a doorway into Rika's life. And Holly Johnson wasn't a passive bystander, she was now directly involved, feeding the conflict, shadowing Carlos, and targeting Rika. The stage was set. Rika had done everything the system told her to do: document the harassment, file reports, secure a protective order. But none of it would stop what was coming next. September 9, 2025 was supposed to be a milestone. It was Rika's son's very first day of school. She woke up early, made him breakfast, helped him button his new shirt and tighten the straps on his backpack. Before they left, she snapped a selfie of the two of them by the front door, his little smile full of excitement, hers hiding the exhaustion of months of stress. Then she wrote him a note, slipped it inside his lunchbox. "Happy Monday, son. This is a fresh start. Always be yourself. You're the coolest, smartest, and funniest kid I know. I love you so much. Mommy." By 8:50 a.m., they were at the school. At 9 o'clock, she kissed him goodbye and watched him disappear into the building. That was the last moment of peace she would ever have. Because just minutes later, a white Chevrolet Malibu came barreling up to the curb. Behind the wheel was Carlos Way. In the passenger seat, Holly Johnson. Witnesses say Carlos jumped out first, calling Rica's name. She tried to ignore him, knowing he was already violating the restraining order just by being there. But Carlos ran up, grabbed her, and threw her phone to the ground when she threatened to call the police. Moments later, he had her in a headlock, his arm wrapped around her throat as she struggled to get free. And then came Holly. At first, one parent thought she was walking away. Instead, Holly opened the car door and reached under the seat. When she turned back, she was holding a Glock 19, a weapon she had legally purchased, loaded with hollow-point bullets designed to tear through flesh. Rica was still trapped in Carlos's grip, her feet barely touching the ground. Holly stepped closer, raised the gun, and pressed it against Rica's face. The shot was deafening. The bullet tore upward through her jaw and out her cheek. Carlos finally let go as Rica collapsed onto the pavement. Holly didn't run. She didn't panic. She simply stood there, gun in hand, like this was just another moment in her morning. The sound of gunfire sent the school into chaos. Inside, teachers rushed to lock classroom doors. The intercom crackled with the words no parent ever wants to hear. Lockdown. This is not a drill. Nearly 400 children huddled under desks while outside, their classmate's mother lay dying on the pavement. And Holly Johnson? She wasn't frantic. She wasn't even shaken. Witnesses watched in disbelief as she pulled out her phone and casually made a call. "Yeah, I'm at the school." "No, I'm fine. My license is in my purse." She spoke like she'd just run an errand, not shot another woman in front of dozens of parents. When bystanders confronted her, Holly doubled down. "She attacked me. I was defending myself." But witnesses were quick to point out the obvious. Rica had been trapped in a chokehold when Holly fired. How could a woman restrained in a headlock pose a threat? Minutes later, police arrived to find Rica barely clinging to life. Paramedics fought to save her, but at 9:43 a.m., she was pronounced dead at the very spot where she had kissed her son goodbye. The story didn't stay contained to the schoolyard. Within hours, video of the shooting and its aftermath spread across social media. By the next day, the internet was in uproar. Carlos Way took to Facebook, posting just 3 words, "Worst day of my life." But sympathy was scarce. Thousands of comments poured in, many pointing out what the videos clearly showed: Rica in a headlock, Holly pulling the trigger, a mother executed outside her son's school. The digital world erupted with anger. Hashtags called for justice. Others debated whether Holly would claim self-defense and walk free. And while the public fought over narratives, investigators in Chicago were quietly collecting evidence. Footage, witness statements, timestamps, each piece painting the same grim picture. On the surface, it looked like an open and shut case. But in the legal system, nothing is ever that simple. What happened to Romeca Meeks wasn't an isolated tragedy, it was part of a pattern. Every 16 hours in America, a woman is killed by a current or former intimate partner. Not a stranger, not a random attacker, someone who once claimed to love them. The statistics are chilling. 3 out of 4 domestic violence murders happen after the woman leaves the relationship. Nearly 9 out of 10 involve prior stalking or harassment. And more than half take place in public, in the very spaces women are told they should feel safe. Romeca knew all of this. She had studied domestic violence protocols in college. She recognized the signs. She filed reports. She secured a restraining order. She changed her routines. She did everything the system told her to do. And still, it wasn't enough. The harsh truth is that restraining orders don't stop bullets. Custody laws often force survivors to remain tethered to their abusers. And when new partners like Holly Johnson step into the picture, they don't always break the cycle. They can become accomplices in it. To Carlos, Romeca wasn't a partner. She was property. And to Holly, Romeca wasn't a human being. She was competition to eliminate. It wasn't love. It was control disguised as devotion. Ownership disguised as passion. The heartbreaking irony is impossible to ignore. Romeca studied the system to help women like herself. But when it was her turn to need protection, that system collapsed around her. And tonight, somewhere in America, another woman is filing paperwork, changing her route to work, looking over her shoulder. Just like Romeca did. Just like so many do. Romeca Meeks' story isn't just about one morning in Chicago. It's about the way the system promises protection but too often delivers paperwork instead of safety. It's about how custody rights can keep victims tethered to their abusers. And it's about how quickly love can twist into possession, and possession into violence. She was a mother, a student, a woman who believed in justice. She wrote her son a note filled with love on the very morning her life was taken. That note is now evidence of just how much she tried to hold on to hope, even while living in fear. And while the courts debate whether this was murder or self-defense, the truth is already clear. The videos, the witnesses, the timestamps, every piece shows what really happened. Romeca did everything she was supposed to do, and still, the system failed her. But her story should not fade into statistics. Because tonight, somewhere else, another woman is slipping a note into her child's lunchbox, thinking about the day ahead, unaware that danger could be waiting just outside her door. Romeca's death is not just a tragedy, it's a warning. A reminder that behind every restraining order, every ignored report, and every delayed response, there is another woman at risk. So as we close this story, ask yourself, how many more notes will never be read? How many more children will walk into school not knowing it's the last time they'll see their mother alive? Thank you for joining me today on the True Crime Shadow. If you found this story as heartbreaking and important as I did, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video so Romeca's story continues to reach others. In our next episode, we'll uncover another chilling true crime story, one that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew. Until then, stay safe, stay aware,